we structured as a earnout seller note, no interest. It was structured on a minimum payment per quarter, which was 25K or 33% of our gross profit. So it really incentivized the seller to kind of, hey, stay involved with us, introduce us to his old clients, still continue to send us business. I have basically the most ass backward search story ever, where, you listen to the podcast, you read Buy Them Build or the HBR guide, etc., learn about searching during the process, and then you go find and buy a business. Whereas what's up, guys? My name is Chandler Reed. I'm in Tampa, Florida. I was technically a self-funded searcher before I even knew what the heck that meant. My background, and previously similar to some of y'all, the multifamily or with some of the real estate experience, I was kind of on the institutional real estate private equity side. First doing multifamily asset management for a private equity group here in Tampa, and then most recently was a financial analyst at a full-scale commercial developer here in Tampa, working on the Water Street Tampa project, if you guys are familiar with that at all. So basically, this is kind of setting up my story, but flashback to January 2021, I'm kind of scrolling on Twitter. I've discovered SMB Twitter, real estate Twitter, just trying to contribute, see what's going on. But I've been working from home for a year at that point, kind of getting bored with my role, and was just kind of seeing, hey, what's out here? Lo and behold, I ended up finding a tweet from my now business partner who said he was looking for someone with a little bit more hustle than capital, someone that knew multifamily real estate, and then someone that could either move to Tampa or is already in Tampa to partner with him on an acquisition. So I basically saw that tweet and thought it was directed at me. It kind of like checked all my boxes. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it. So long story short, I DM'd him. I eventually end up bringing in our third partner, who's kind of my mentor in the multifamily industry. I worked with him at my first gig out of school, stayed in touch with him. He's kind of a multifamily veteran, if you will. So long story short, the three of us ended up closing on the business about 3 months after I see Sam's tweet on April 20th, 2021. So go ahead.
So Sam was looking for operators.
Correct.
Without having any existing businesses.
No. So Sam is kind of he has a holding company, Pursuing Capital here in Tampa, and then he puts on a self-funded searcher Bootcamp. So he lives, eats, and breathes kind of like buy side, small, SMB M&A advisory. That's his gig. So he gets a bunch of deals across his desk, but doesn't always have an operator to fill him in. And he kind of exhausted his kind of, I guess, workbench of people. So he took it to Twitter, and that's how we got connected. Yeah. So luckily, I knew real estate transactions, but I had no idea what small business acquisitions looked like as a transaction. So Sam basically helped us run our whole transaction. Bert, my partner, brought the kind of multifamily expertise and a bigger check than I can write. And then I brought in some money myself, but then also the hustle to hop in as the operator, which was a turnaround. It had been passed over by some strategic. So I know kind of the running joke in this world is you never want to buy a job. And I bought 10 jobs. But that was kind of what I was looking for because, I was literally a financial analyst running Excel Argus models, basically up until this point. So that's a little bit about my story. But
so did you run a search where you were looking for business yourself, or just hitting up brokers all day?
No, so I didn't even know what searching was. I didn't know what ETA was, what SMB stood for. I literally saw a tweet. I thought it was for me, pursued it, and literally the day that the wires cleared to the seller, I quit. I put in notice at my job, and I stepped in as an SMB owner. But
so did Sam had the business already?
Correct. Sam, the deal had basically gotten on Sam's desk, and he took it to Twitter to try and source an operator, which was me. And what was really funny is I have basically the most ass backward search story ever, where you listen to the podcast, you read Buy Them Build or the HBR guide, etc., and you go out and search, learn about searching during the process, and then you go find and buy a business. Whereas I kind of skipped a couple steps, bought a business, but then I got introduced to the world of search through Sam, his boot camps that he puts on, the conference SM Bash, which I'm now a co-host of as well. And I fell in love with the space. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there's this whole group of people. I thought it was only private equity that was buying businesses, right? Yeah. Not like regular everyday people, or that there's even a market for these smaller businesses. So I kind of fell into it ass backwards, but I'm so happy I did because one, the acquisition, there was some ups and downs with it, but now it's good. And then the space I just fell in love with, and now I'm kind of helping out Sam with his boot camps that he's putting on, the SM boot camp. If y'all maybe seen me
let's
post
stay
on
with
that.
the acquisition. I want to hear that story.
Yeah.
What is the business that you guys bought?
Yeah, so the business that I bought was a multifamily lighting contractor. So back when LEDs were first like kind of a hot thing, obviously now, they're incredibly commoditized. But the guy I bought the business from would go to, institutional multifamily apartments and basically replaced all the existing lights, at least the lights that were the owners were on hook for paying the electricity bill wise. So all the, the halogen lights, the compact fluorescents, et cetera, come back, replace it with LED and, get a 50% ROI just off the bat, just for the energy savings. There's no bulbs in a lot of these new LED ones. So the maintenance guys weren't having to do, take time away from their work orders to go replace light bulbs that were out. So it was a pretty no brainer project for these people, but kind of, we'd gotten into the point, so the seller had, the only reason he was selling it is because he started a smart home installation business for institutional multifamily groups and kind of gutted his time, attention, and resources away from the lighting business. And so basically he ended up raising a Series A for it. They're crushing it for that smart home business. But his investors basically told him, hey, you have this other business. You're kind of taking your eye off the ball. You got to sell it. So at that point, the business, was a far cry from its former self. And so it needed the right kind of acquirer to come and take it over and turn it around and enter that. That was me and my partners.
That's awesome. So the business was for how much at the time?
Yeah, so it was listed for $1 million. The net income on the kind of last tax return was $60K. It was a real big lifestyle business. This guy's running his Tampa Bay Lightning tickets through it, his wife's Porsche, anything that you can think of. So we were basically buying on it on the kind of promise of it. Hey, you just need to bring some life back into it. And, lights are never going away on apartments. So you guys are going to continually get business, even though most people have LEDs now. Like every 5-6 years or so, they reach the end of their useful life. So you got to come replace them. So there was certainly kind of a proposition there, but kind of the biggest thing that we were looking at was what else could we do with this business? We have contacts across multifamily with construction managers that are buying our existing lights. What's kind of the next greatest things? And luckily, I, just being in the industry, I kind of saw where the puck was heading. Every institutional group now had either started or is in the process of starting a sustainability department. So, the ESG scores, LEED certifications, all that stuff is becoming super hot. So I'm like, hey, here's an opportunity to buy in at this business, which we ended up buying it for $625K off the $1 million original listing price. Buy it for that, get that turned around back to its former glory. So there's kind of a value investment play there. But then also for growth, what are these kind of other projects that these multifamily groups are going to be pursuing that we can figure out how to do and bring to them? So
what were the sales at the former glory of that business?
Yeah, it was doing about $7 million top line, about $1 million to $1.5 million bottom line, depending, what he wanted to run through the business at the time.
That was before he started the new business, the new automation business.
Exactly. Yep. So we were like, okay. And at the time we bought it, I think we did $1 million our first year of top line. But so obviously there's a big risk there, right? Maybe there's a chance we don't ever get back up to that former glory or even close to it. So we ended up
How many people?
No, there's only one employee that was doing all the back end fulfillment, right? Yeah. So ultimate key man risk, right?
Yeah.
So there's a reason that Sam had to go on Twitter to find someone to partner with him on this because, it was a very hairy deal, but I was the right person for it to go take on this endeavor. And obviously there was some risk involved, but on the deal structure itself, kind of how we were compensated for taking on that risk. So number one, we got it at a pretty freaking good price at $625K. We put 25% of that down cash up front. So I think that was like $150K.
150.
Yeah. And then the 75% we structured as a earnout. seller note with, no interest. It was structured on a minimum payment per quarter, which was 25K or 33% of our gross profit. So it really incentivized the seller to kind of, hey, stay involved with us, introduce us to his old clients, still continue to send us business, stuff like that.
No interest.
No interest.
Interesting. Okay.
So
Is
yeah,
it 25 or 33% lower or higher?
it was a higher. So it kind of,
So
so the
you're
better
always
we
going to
did,
pay 25%,
yeah,
25 grand minimum.
exactly. So the better we did, the faster he got paid back. So
Got
yeah,
it.
so that
So
was
it's like
kind
a
of
seller financing.
exactly. It
Yes,
was
really.
a seller financing structured in the form of an earnout with 0% interest. So we
Got it.
structured a great deal that got us comfortable with taking the risk. And it, you know, worked out pretty well. You want me to talk about kind of in
Yeah.
between acquisition to where we stand today?
Yeah. What
So,
do you guys do when you first got in? You didn't know anything about that industry. You're learning what electrical work or lighting work and multifamily
yeah.
is like. So how did that transition go for you?
Yeah. So it went like pretty well. I mean, so just paint you a more picture. At the time when I bought it, I was 25, single, no kids. So all I had was time to spend on this, growing it back up. I'd fully quit my job. So I really dove in. I did every single thing you can think of within the business. Nothing was too little, like doing all of our invoicing, some of our accounting, obviously sales, HR, insurance, anything that you can think of. I got my hands on it quick and fast, because I knew I had to learn all this stuff if I ever wanted to scale the business one day via hiring people, et cetera. Because I had to do it first before we could figure out who those types of people were to bring in to scale it. So basically 2021, it was just me and Richard, the guy, the one employee that came over. I could touch on what we did to help keep him
Yeah,
around too. So
please. Yeah,
basically
yeah.
we had to sell him on us, right? So we basically shared our vision for the company. Like, yeah, we're getting the lighting back to where its former glory, but this is going to be a way bigger company one day once we start doing some of the additional projects, which are now EV charging stations, low flow plumbing, and some smart thermostat stuff, which is kind of a gray area because our competitor does smart thermostats, but we don't really broadcast that we do it. It's like if someone asks us, and it's a part of like a bigger lighting project. So I had to sell him on that vision for the company and that he was going to be the guy. He started as an intern with the company in 2014. So he'd gone through, the full gamut of learning this business from the ground up. And I was like, dude, listen, we can't, do this without you. We want you to be a big part of this company and we're going to grow this thing around you. So we sold him on the vision first, and then obviously too financially, he had never been making bonuses before, so we put in a pretty good variable comp structure that the better we did, the better he did. So we kind of aligned incentives on that front.
How did you structure that?
Yeah, so basically, there's a couple tiers. Number one was just like signed projects. Every time we signed a project, that obviously he would have a big help in on the back end work of closing that contract. He would get compensated for that, just cash, depending on how big the contract was. And then we structured one where he would get a percentage of net income. So it kind of incentivized him to, be, an owner mindset, be frugal, but not, to the detriment of the company. And then finally, some operational KPIs that we structured, like number of like the proposal turnaround time, which are our bids, our gross margin on the project, some stuff that like basically everything that he was touching within the business, he was keep being incentivized to do as well as possible.
So the business is really just a project management business because you don't have
100%.
any like electricians on staff. You're
Correct.
not
We
were
sub
you a
out all of our
licensed
labor.
contractor?
No.
You're not. Okay.
None of our subs are licensed. So the good thing about the lighting projects is you don't have to pull permits for that. It's not structural. It's just literally pulling the light off, putting it back on. There are some cases where we'd like install lights at a community that maybe had some security issues. So we needed to add more lights to their parking lots or something like that. But all of our subs are licensed and insured in their various jurisdictions. So yeah, so we're effectively a project manager.
So when you sign the contract, are you signing you are the person delivering that service or your subs are the ones doing
Correct.
it?
So we signed the contract as Get Green saying, hey, we're going to perform this work. And then we would go and sign a subsequent subcontract for the scope of work with basically we have like regional crews that will obviously work in the state that they're in, but we'll also hop over state lines for us if needed. So
interesting.
it's
So all you're doing essentially is just sales and marketing.
Correct. Sales, marketing, and then
and
the
project
on the
management?
solution side, we'll go in. A lot of times, not all lighting companies are the same. Luckily, Richard's been doing this. He's seen every single type of project you can think of. So we'll go in and design, let's say, oh, you have like these wattage wall packs here. These are way underlit versus replacing them with a light kind fixture. We recommend putting in a double wattage one to get more security. So there's like an engineering and design aspect to it, but at the core, we're a sales and project management firm.
Got it. And a lot of your clients are large funds or individual multifamily owners?
Yeah, so primarily institutional multifamily managers. So our biggest client is Greystar, which they might be every vendor's biggest client just because they're freaking gigantic.
Yeah,
But like pretty much anyone on the NMHC top 50 on the owner and management side, like I guaranteed we've worked for them or done a bid for them.
got
Um, and then we also have some good relationships with like some strategic value add acquiring groups because they, are the ones that are doing a lot of lighting projects and the low flow plumbing stuff. Not too much on the EV side. That's more the institutional Greystar types.
yeah,
And then also with just kind of my kind of Rolodex in multifamily, and then my partner Bert, the multifamily veteran I mentioned, we know a bunch of like smaller people. So
like
like,
syndicators.
yeah. So of like, hey, if they had a lighting project for us, even though, maybe they only have like 10K units under management or something like that, we would go do projects for them too. But who we're going after are like the big whales.
Got it. And a lot of it is sales. So were you the one doing sales,
Yeah,
or
I
they
was.
had accounts already?
Yeah. So there's some clients that would go like they had a great relationship with Richard. So like for the time being, at least, they would like hit Richard up, who would then forward me it. So he kind of channeled all the communication that he was having towards me. And then basically I hit up everyone that we had done a bid for or anyone the seller had done a bid for, hop on a call with them, introduce myself, and I was running all the sales
Got it.
at that time.
Got it.
So
Makes sense.
So that was 2021. Luckily, the commercial or the multifamily market got super hot, as I'm sure a lot of y'all know. So we went on a freaking rip from, call it late 2021 to all the way through September of 2022. In between that time frame, we saw sales, or from 2021, our top line was about 900K. Annualized it was like 1.1 million bucks. And then in 2022, we ended up doing 3 mil top line. So basically tripled in 1 year.
Wow.
So we made some hires to kind of support that new growth level. And we thought, the multifamily market continues like this, we're going to triple again next year. So we were all gung ho. And that's one of the scary things about buying. And we're strictly a project-based business. So that's one of the scary things about buying a project-based business, right? It's like when it's great, it's great. When it's not great, you better have some reserves saved up to float you through the down period. So flash forward to September 2022. Luckily, we already had a bunch of stuff under contract for Q4 and then a couple projects in Q1 of 2023. But as y'all know, interest rates spiked. I think it was fastest of all time.
Yep.
Not 100% on that, but yeah.
Yes,
So that basically halted, especially halted value add multifamily transactions where we had a bunch of revenue from. And even on the non-transaction side, the same dollars that go to improve your property, CapEx, are the ones that you're paying your interest on your loans with as well. So basically everyone froze up, money super tight to their chest until about April of 2023 is when we started getting some more projects again. So after doing 3 million bucks top line in 2022, making 3 in-person hires, a couple VA hires, come March 2023, we had signed 10K of revenue that year. So got scary fast. So we basically had to let go of everyone that we had hired the year before, minus 1 VA. And basically Richard, a VA, and I, our new operating memorandum was, hey, we're in default alive, or we have to get to default alive mode. And maybe it was the business gods looking after me after I had to make a tough decision. But come April 2023, we had our best year or best month to date. I think we signed about like 650 or 700K worth of projects in just that 1 month.
In 1 month. Wow.
Yeah, which was sick. So that was like, all right, we're not going out of business, but we're
so
still
everything ripped
sledding
back because everybody was uncertain what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And
everyone was like, Yeah,
It's just
interest
like
rates are here to stay.
pencil
We still want to
down.
improve. Yep, exactly.
Got
Transactions are still pretty much frozen right now. They're starting to dethaw or thaw a little bit, but
But also a lot of the properties that were acquired the prior 12 months still need to do the work anyway. You know what I mean?
exactly.
So we may have paused the work, but the work still needs to be done.
Exactly. So they pause that. We're starting to get some of those projects now in 2024.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, 2023, we were scratching and clawing. And as we kind of sit today here in January of 24, we're getting ready. I'm talking with some candidates now to make our first kind of biz dev hire to kind of take that off my plate.
Nice.
And then to backfill the engineers that we had hired last year. We've struck an agreement with some of our subs and got them trained up. The ones that are in kind of like, if you're looking at the bell curve, I would say like 66% of our projects fall under states touching Georgia, which is where our best sub relationships were. So basically we've enabled them to help us do some of the on-site initial assessments. So we've kind of smartly solved for our kind of fulfillment side. And now we're going to get ready to make a sales hire probably in the next few weeks.
So going back to that 20, the best year, the 3 million, that's 21, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 3 million year?
That was 2022.
22. So that year, did you make money on that year? What was your margin that year?
Yeah, so unfortunately, for better or for worse, the way that we structured this earnout, basically most of our free cash flow was going contractually obligated to go pay down the seller note faster.
Yeah.
So we weren't making any profit, but we were gaining, equity in the company fast.
But pre debt servicing, pre everything, let's say your EBITDA, what was your actual EBITDA pre debt service?
Pre-debt service on that it was probably around 500K.
Okay. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And then, which is kind of a little bit under 15%.
Yeah, that's probably the norm until we kind of can. The EV side is a little bit less commoditized as the lighting are. A lot of time with the lighting projects, we're just competing against Joe Lighter across the street that can, bring his crew in and do it for half our price. But, as we always tell all of our clients, cheaper is going to be more expensive for you in the long run. We've had to do a lot of cleanup work for some clients off, cheaper bids that they went with a year later. So they've learned their lesson.
So in that business, the revenue you generate, the top line number, that's the actual what the client is paying.
Correct.
And
that's
then
contract.
off that you're paying the subs.
Yep.
And then so what would be like, so your gross margin on a business like that would be what?
Around 33%.
33%.
Like a third of it is materials, a third of it is labor, a third of it's our profit.
Got it. Okay. Got
Mm-hmm.
it. And you're not paying for the material, are you? Or they're paying, or the subs are paying?
So we pay for the material, but the way we structure our contracts are, we don't have any inventory. We effectively have, probably 20 or so distributors / direct to manufacturer for various different lighting specs. A lot of them have the same type of looking stuff. So we basically take a deposit up front for all of our projects. We use that deposit money to go buy the materials, get it shipped on site or to our sub, and they just truck up the materials to site.
Oh,
and
wow.
then they go and execute the project. For the bigger ones, like, when we have like thousands of lighting fixtures, we'll go rent, a mini storage thing and go set it on the parking area and just have everything delivered into it. But for the most part, we're pretty much either shipping it right to our subs or on site when they get there and they knock out the project for us.
What are the payment terms with the clients? So you're saying they're giving you a deposit up front, like you're like what, 33%, 40%?
Yeah. So in an ideal world, not all of our clients, I would say on average, what they shake out to, or I'll just tell you, in an ideal world, it's 50% up front.
50%.
50 up front, we'll invoice 40% once we kick off the project, and then 10% at completion. I would say probably half of our clients are on that structure. But then the kind of big boys like the gray stars, you try to negotiate the contract, they tell you to fuck yourself.
So what happens there?
Yeah. So what happens there is I scratch and claw for the biggest deposit we can get. I would say on the low end, it's probably like 20%. On the high end, it's probably like 40%, not the full 50. So I would say if you took the weighted average across all of our contracts and all of our payment terms, it probably shakes out to be about 35% or 40% upfront, another probably 30%. Let's just use 40 for sake of me doing math in my head right now.
Yeah.
40% upfront, 30% progress, 30% at completion.
So progress is when you start the project, or
Yes, when we get it kicked off.
Got it. So your working capital is not that high.
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, if everything goes according to plan, it's like a negative net working capital.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, I was concerned because you had these big clients and you're doing these big projects, and then all of a sudden you're working cap. I'm assuming that they're gonna give you a hard time in terms, but it's still not bad. They're still gonna do something up front.
And then luckily, going back to kind of, well, it was pretty tough to manage cash flow when 33% of our gross profits going out the door, and oh shit, we had a big material order we had to put in, and maybe the deposit didn't cover all of that. So obviously we had a line of we still have a line of credit, which is good, that we kind of just pull on as needed. And then, so I guess to almost bring it all the way to where we are today, we paid off our seller note officially, thanks to that gangbusters month. We paid off the seller note in August of 2023. So we're officially now debt free. And that was about 2.5 years ahead of schedule based on the minimum payments, which is pretty cool. Granted, it didn't feel like, we weren't like, or it didn't feel like we were making a shit ton of money, but like we were, paying off our debt on it, whether for better or for worse. So today, now we've kind of built up a good sized war chest, which is why I'm about to go hire some expensive ass biz dev dude.
That's awesome. So how much revenue did you do last year?
In 23, we did 1.8 million bucks. Okay. So yeah, so we got smoked, right? But luckily, I think like the default for this business in a normal year, with just like, hey, of just warming back up our existing kind of clients that carried over from the acquisition, I think this thing does probably like 2 million bucks with minimal kind of sales effort. That's just mainly on the inbound, and we just got to take care of them and reach out to them, which is pretty good.
Yeah, and then a small lifestyle throws off something like 300K, 350K in net profit, and then you're good. Yeah, that makes sense. And are you now pursuing new clients and aggressively growing?
Yes. So we are going full blown. It's nice to be back in attack mode now, versus just fighting to stay alive last year. But yeah, we actually got at the end of last year, and then this year we've signed contracts with 3 new clients, which has been good. And yeah, we're hoping this biz dev hire can get us in the door with the rest of that NMHC top 50 list that we're not currently working with. Yeah. And then obviously, all of our existing clients are still bringing us business.
Well, I think the challenge that you have is the concentration in multifamily and cyclicality of that concentration. It's not the fact that it's contract based. It's just that the industry that you're focused on is very cyclical. Yes. And it's also concentrated. Are you looking to kind of like diversify a little bit off, maybe go industrial or go some
Yes. So we've actually done a couple one-off warehouses for just people that we know who own warehouses here in Tampa. Yeah. I think one of the more exciting things that we're working on right now is we signed an agreement with this company called Aquamizer, who I know the owner of, which is basically like, think of like a low flow toilet, but instead of replacing the entire toilet, it's like the engine, I guess, for lack of a better word, like in the toilet tank itself.
Yeah, the mechanism.
Yeah, that basically retrofits any size toilet into, a 1 gallon per flush without losing, the flush speed, which that's a pretty good avenue for anyone that's on the hook for water and sewer bills. So primarily like hotels or government entities. Yeah. So we're going to start pushing that pretty hard. That's part of the reason why I needed to get a multifamily sales guy in, so I can start pursuing these other kind of verticals. Yeah. And then another big one for that too is the EV charging stations. Like, you can put those really anywhere, but primarily office and multifamily.
You guys install those?
Yeah, we do those fully turnkey. So we'll do all the electrical infrastructure. So if you need to get, a new panel and breaker to be able to support it, especially if you have an older multifamily building, if you just tried putting that on like a non-dedicated panel, it would blow it pretty fast. Yeah. So we do all the electrical infrastructure, all the conduit, the wiring, the trenching, you name it, we can do it.
Oh, that's awesome. So the opportunity here is, to take advantage of the green, all the money that's been allocated by the government toward these green things. Are you guys pursuing these credits or marketing the credits to these
Yes.
operators?
So what's great about us, so kind of our turnkey install includes, hey, if there's any sort of like rebate out there, we can't help them with the tax credit. We can give them all the documentation and help them with like guide their CPA to fill out that paperwork. But for the EV chargings, for example, in the Inflation Reduction Act, there's credits for EV charging stations. Granted, now after 2022, your apartment community has to basically be in like a impoverished area based on the U.S. Census tract that it's in to qualify for it. But our project still, if you do own something in there, you can qualify for it. So we can get you all that documentation. But one thing we do help out with is on the lighting, water, thermostat, and EV side. A lot of utility companies offer rebates for doing these projects. So we can go procure that on our client's behalf, and which will obviously, take a percentage of that on their behalf. So for example, we did a project for Greystar. We installed 6 dual port EV charging stations in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Duke Energy, or it might be Duke Progressive. I forget. It's split down the middle in North Carolina, but we did the project for them, submitted all the paperwork, and they got back like maybe a 10% of the entire project rebate as a check. So,
Nice.
Yeah, we definitely guide our clients, and our VAs. I tell them we have a whole team dedicated to it, but it's really a VA that knows what she's doing, and a good team that knows how to fill out the paperwork. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And are you geographically concentrated somewhere, or you go everywhere?
Yeah, so that's a cool thing about the subcontract nature of this business. So since we acquired it, we've done a project in suburban Seattle, farthest like away from Tampa, where we're headquartered and where I live. A couple in New York City, like Manhattan proper, and then basically everywhere in between. But I would say our concentration is basically states touching Georgia. So in the Southeast is where, the meat of our projects are. But outside of that, it's primarily like Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas, I would say are 4 biggest markets. But again, especially too, if our clients are national, right? So, hey, I got a project. We did one for a client in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was, I don't know if anyone's been to Albuquerque or has ever gone or knows anyone from Albuquerque or is from Albuquerque, but I don't mean to disparage you, but wow, was that a not enjoyable experience? But hey, we can do a project there. So
nice. And now you see year 1 it was like 1.1, year 2 3 million, year 3 2 million. What's year 4? What's your projection?
This year, if we can scratch $3 million again, I'd be a very happy camper. I think it'll probably end up shaking out depending on where transactions start picking up to. But based on all of our clients, they're like, hey, we're projecting around like Q2, Q3 of this year, we're going to get back on the acquisition train. Okay. So I'm modeling us to be at 2.5 this year, okay. But if we get back to 3, it'd be great. And then anything on top of that, would be gravy. So
and you're planning on acquiring another operation like this?
No, to be honest with you, I would do what I did 100% of the time just to get my feet wet and get into entrepreneurship and do the ETA route, and how much I've learned. Like I almost treated this acquisition as like a real world MBA that I was getting paid for with a call option to, sell it one day for a good amount of money, or just, hey, we'll hang on to it forever. It's not a rocket science business. We just have to know how to do it and then hire people to do it. And then, I'll clip a dividend and, perpetuity or whatever. But no, I will never be buying a project-based construction business again. There's easier ways to make money. Granted, it's not easy to make any money, but I've learned that this is not the ideal business for me.
Got it. And so did you guys pay yourself, get your money back already, or not yet?
Yeah, so we're about to make a distribution this quarter that will take us kind of out of the initial money in. We still have to pay ourselves pref return, and then finally, after that, we'll start, making quarterly distributions. Hopefully, knock on wood.
And the goal is to hold or to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, I want to grow this thing and get it to a point to where, if someone, I don't know if we'll ever like market it, but we do have some private equity backed competitors that we've stolen a decent amount of business from. So I'm hoping they're going to come to us looking to acquire one day. But if not, I'm hoping to fully bring myself out of this business. Maybe it's like a 5-10 hour a month type deal where I'm just guiding and leading and giving input. And we hang on to it. Or, if we grow it big enough and we come together as our three partners and we're like, hey, are we ready to sell it, move on? That I'd be fine with that too. But my main goal is to get my time back, because I plan on doing kind of a proper search for a business that I'm head over heels for wise. It's something that I can potentially roll up in the future too.
What industry? What business?
So it, in an ideal world, it's probably something that still services multifamily because I still have a plethora of contacts there, but something that on a recurring basis. So whether that is, some sort of repairs and maintenance that go on site or something like that, or if I'm going to buy like a kind of, I guess, real world business for lack of a better term again, it's going to be something that services apartments, like lawn care or maybe, something that's like on a recurring basis. But if I wasn't doing that, probably some sort of like white collar professional service that can be done remotely. I've seen some people that's kind of, a newer frontier in the ETA world, but I've seen some people do it really successfully and they can work from wherever and they love their life. So I'm like, all right, that sounds pretty good to me.
Those environmental studies businesses are awesome.
Yeah, I know. And that would kind of work. I mean, it could kind of rhyme with what we're currently doing, but fit under the umbrella.
Yeah. Awesome. So any questions, guys? You can jump in if you have any questions before we go to the next.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk anything about my deal, multifamily or real estate in general. That was my whole life before that. Or
all right, well, tell us about the SMB bootcamp that you guys have now.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Sam had, he kind of he did M&A buy side advisory for a really long time. He was a self-funded searcher himself, bought 2 deals literally within a month from each other. He bought one that he was searching for a while, and then another one fell on his desk. So he's like, oh, I got to do this too. But luckily he was partnered with his brothers, so they could kind of divide and conquer. So Sam basically took all that knowledge, and what started as people just showing up to his office, getting box lunches and whiteboarding out how to do a small business acquisition, has kind of blossomed into this live boot camp that he runs here in Tampa, to where, people who maybe just are trying to figure out how to search, or maybe they've searched for a while with no luck, or maybe they're even an existing business owner who are looking to do a tuck-in or, start rolling up in their industry and want to learn how to go buy businesses. Sam structured and built this boot camp that basically is a 3-day here in Tampa, everything you need to know about how to searching, getting to a closed LOI. And then he brings in our SM boot camp deal team, which are some of the best and brightest in the SMB ETA world, to help you close the business. And so basically I came in, I did a case study. The last days are always case studies. I did one case study and I told Sam, I was like, dude, do you ever thought about making this kind of any bigger than it is right now? He's like, what do you mean? Like, I have no idea how to do that. I'm like, all right, well, and this was back in summer of last year when things were pretty slow for us, Get Green side. So I basically told him, hey, I'll help you grow this. One thing we got to do is bring it online, but we got to tread very lightly on that. The last thing we want to do is, throw a $500 PDF online and just be a quick cash grab. That's kind of the antithesis of what we're trying to do. And luckily there are some other digital first competitors out there who are giving us a great example of what not to do, which is pretty good. So all in all, between all that, I basically partnered with him to help bring it online and then to grow the existing boot camps, which has been, a crash course in education for me, right? Because I'm, living, eating, breathing, all this stuff. And then I'm just going to use all that to go help me out on my own search eventually. And hopefully in 2025, if I can get this all buttoned up in an ideal world, I'll be searching in 2025.
That's awesome. Miles, do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, it may be pre-acquisition or post. If you had to go back and do something different, or what would you do?
Yeah. maybe have educated myself on what are the best types of SMBs to buy. Like I said, I don't think I would buy this type of business ever again. But like I said, I would go back and do pretty much everything. I think everything happens for a reason. Like I said, this thing kind of fell in my lap on Twitter. I thought the tweet was designed for me that I found the business through. So I don't necessarily think there was anything that I would do differently. Maybe kind of structure the seller note in a way to where we would have some extra kind of cash to mess around with as we were trying to complete the turnaround.
How would you do that?
Yeah, maybe have made the percentage of our gross profit less, because it ended up being, that percentage was almost pretty much identical to like our free cash flow.
Correct.
So that I would say is the only thing I would change differently. Other than that, I mean, like I said, everything kind of happens for a reason.
Got it. Would you have kept the people that you had, so instead of like going full crazy cut everything mode, would you have kept them a little bit longer to see how things were shaking out? Maybe talk to the seller, have them pause the note, survive that quarter.
Yes. So yes and no. There's one person I really wish we would have kept. But the other ones, it was more of we weren't in a position to be very judicious on hiring because the demand was literally like unlike anything I've ever seen in a business context. It was like, hey, can this person do the job? Yes. All right. They're hired.
So you got a pulse. If you have a pulse, you're hired.
Exactly. And it was like, that was my first time. Obviously my partners were helping me out hire, but those were my first 3 hires I ever made. I learned a lot of mistakes on that front.
Yeah.
Luckily it didn't implode us, but they got the job done, right? I wouldn't call them A players, but they certainly, if, we gave them the hammer and then we showed them where the nail was, they could go knock it down. So
what was the evolution of the relationship as well as the learnings from having that one employee, Richard? What are some of the things that you learned over the time?
Yeah. So I've learned that he's probably not going to be the ultimate operator of this business, nor does he really want to be the ultimate operator of this business. Whereas I thought like, we can just empower this guy to, come up and lead the business. He knows everything. But all he wants to, I guess for lack of a better term, he's kind of like a farmer. He just wants to show up 9 to 5, do a great job, and then go home and hang out on the weekends, which is fine, right? He does a fantastic job at what he does. But so I've kind of learned like there's a special type of person that wants to lead a company, and it's not just because this person may be kind of qualified on paper between their experience and industry knowledge. That doesn't necessarily make them a person that wants to go run a business. And then also too, like, at the time I was 25 when I bought this. Richard, the guy that transitioned, he was like, I think 33 at acquisition. So like, imagine him, like some snot-nosed dude who's never worked in this business before is all of a sudden your boss and trying to tell you what to do in a business that you've been doing for freaking 7 years. And this guy has 0 experience. So I've learned really kind of how to manage people and be delicate about it. And then kind of lead from the front and not from, on the pulpit, if you will. So that required me, getting my hands dirty, joining him on some assessments and some installs to go check everything out. And then really just showing an effort that, hey, I'm not just some like corporate suit that came and bought this business from this dude, but I'm a member of the team too.
Got it. And so you see him around, as a foundational person to grow, but not necessarily the guy who's going to take over.
Exactly. So in the ideal world, like he's going to be our, I guess, if you want to call it like now, like the vice president of operations, like everything that's related to any project that we do, he's taken care of. Like I'm never going to expect him to, hey, are we going to invest money in marketing this year? Or how much money are we going to invest in marketing or anything like that? He's going to own all of our projects, soup to nuts. And then we'll eventually bring in kind of a quote unquote, more like true operator, if you will.
Got it. Okay. And are you involved with the SMB batch too?
Yeah. Yes. So that was started by Sam in 2021. That's when I first really got my true like aha moment of like, oh my God, there's this whole ecosystem and community of people that do this stuff for a living. So this past year for the 2024, they kind of pulled me in to be a co-host of it. So as if I didn't have enough on my plate already, but I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a really special one. It's April 18th through the 20th, 2024 in Salt Lake City.
What's with the ticket price, man? It was like $5,000.
No. Well, I think it was last year. This is before I joined.
Okay.
I think last year it was $4K.
Yeah.
Right now on the early bird, you can get them for $29.95, which I think will be going through the end of this month or maybe through the end of next month.
Yeah.
Just looking at my calendar there.
I think Brent did a really nice event. Were you there?
Yeah, the Main Street
Kansas?
Summit.
Yeah,
No,
that was
unfortunately,
great.
yeah, I heard that was incredible.
That was a great event.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't make it to that one, but we heard nothing but good things about it. And Brent's probably even going to become speaking at SMBash too. He's got a kid on the way, I think. So if the kid, depending on the delivery of the child, Brent will be keynoting SMBash, which will be pretty cool.
Nice. That's awesome. Paresh, you had the question?
Yeah, no, appreciate Chandler sharing all the information and giving us some insight into some of the nuts and bolts. Hey, I had a question in regards, going back to the seller note. So it sounds like to me, and I'm asking, walk me through the negotiation with the seller to kind of reach those hurdles that you described. And then would you, I guess, if you were in the same situation, maybe imply that you might actually tie it more to free cash flow than maybe to gross revenue, or how does that sound? Yeah, I just would love to hear a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, so to be completely candid, that was why Sam was a huge add to our team, because he's worked with stuff like that in the past. So he was primarily doing most of that negotiation on our behalf. But we really got to the number. It was primarily, I think it was, so the seller was telling us, oh, it's like a 35% or like 40% gross margin business, which it really wasn't. It was more of like the 33, maybe even less than that business. And so to be honest with you, there wasn't like an exact formulation. It was just like, all right, I think this number is comfortable with us. And we didn't do a quality of earnings or anything like that, which in hindsight, maybe probably should have, to kind of support some of the numbers we were negotiating on. But, you live and you learn, and it wasn't, a huge deal. I wasn't personally guaranteeing any SBA debt or anything like that. So it was like, all right.
So he was, when the first conversation with the seller, he was essentially ready to do a fully 100% seller finance deal.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, because he's been sitting there for a long time, and
it had been on the market for I think about 6 or 7 months at that point. Got passed over by multiple strategics, and just sitting there and it was like in the middle of COVID too. So, and his other business was growing really fast. So he's like, I just need to get rid of this. All right, if you guys are gonna kind of lowball me, which we did, but if you're gonna lowball me, I need some cash up front. So we're like, all right, we could do that.
Yeah, that was interesting because you got the lower price and you got the seller financing, but but even at the gross margin, if you think that your gross margin is 33%, why would you agree to give him the whole 33%? Because that leaves you with nothing.
Well, it was 33% of gross margin. So the gross margin was 33%. It was 33% of that number, which when you factored in our overhead and then also some of the kind of hidden CapEx dollars that, any new transition, you might not be underwriting, that basically took up all the free cash flow.
What are those things in your case?
One, the software that we used that they designed, he invested, 150K to get this like proprietary app software developed that you could go take on an iPad to an apartment community, create the whole scope of work and all the counts of the lights, all the photos, anything you could think of needed to kind of create the bid, to capture all that data and then output the ending proposal with.
Yeah.
It had a ton of bugs in it. Our development team was in Pakistan, took forever to get answers from them. Things are going wrong all the time. So eventually I was like, all right, screw it. I can't deal with this anymore. I need a solution that works right now. So we went with like kind of an off the shelf software that also had the
Service Titan.
No, it's called SnapCount.
Okay.
I think it's Streamlinks is their parent company.
Okay.
But they also have the capability of doing EV charging bids too, which was kind of our next project on the forecast or on the kind of timeline. So I'm like, all right, if we can kill two birds with one stone here, that's going to be, I think it ends up being like 25K for the 3 licenses that we needed a year. So not cheap software, but it was way better than kind of having to use a broken product.
Yeah, it had customer service behind it, maintenance behind it.
Exactly.
It was service, yeah.
Onshore team, that responsive customer service. Exactly.
What else? What else were surprises that you didn't expect?
That every single one of your clients is going to expect you to do their vendor sponsorship for their kind of region, which can add up pretty fast, and how much kind of freaking schmoozing the multifamily vending business relates. Like, it doesn't matter if you have the most superior project or the most superior product or service or price point. Like, if you're not the kind of favored son with these kind of people who can pick bids, you are not going to be getting any deals from them.
So you have to show up to the party.
Got to show up to the party, got to pay for the party, got to pay for the after party, and multiple times a year. So, just kind of greasing the palm a little bit. That was more than I was anticipating.
Makes sense. Were you the one doing that?
Yeah, I was doing all of it, which was kind of cool in hindsight. Because like one of the things we talk up there, teach in the SM Bootcamp is like, don't go chase whatever the next hot PE darling is, or whatever some business someone tells you how to do it. You got to really take a deep look on, number one, your personal skills and experience. And then number two, what do you want your life to look like as an operator? Like, you can buy the best home run deal ever in your Excel model or on paper, but 2 months into it, you're traveling all the time, or you got to go unclog toilets because your maintenance techs are calling out sick. Like, congrats, you just bought yourself a living hell. Yeah. But luckily for me, and because we work nationwide, I was getting to travel across the country, taking people out to dinner, going to sports games, stuff like that, which was really cool for me as a single 25-year-old dude at the time. So that was a hidden thing I didn't expect I would be doing too much of, but it ended up working out really well for me.
Yeah, but for someone who's married with kids, that's not
yeah.
cool.
It's like, hey, honey, I'm going to be gone for 2 days a week for the next 5 months. Best of luck. Yeah, not good.
So as you're going forward and you're looking into shifting toward more commercial, what's the sales marketing plan look like?
Yeah, so number one, it's going to be, you got to identify the people that are responsible for the budgets and signing bids and awarding bids. So the ways that we kind of do that are, one, we'll do some really super targeted and specific customized cold emailing out just to get our name out there, with the end goal of just hopping on a call with them, telling them past projects that we've done. And then two,
how do you build the list?
Yeah, so there's service providers out there.
Okay.
The one that I use is called listkit.io. Basically, you can filter by industry, by job title, by location. So, for example, for multifamily this year, at the beginning of this year, we just kicked off a campaign to every single construction manager that works in multifamily that resides in a state that's touching Georgia. So you can kind of bury down. So if you can imagine, we're going to take that same playbook and just minus multifamily, add in hotel or hospitality, add in industrial, add in retail. And then also as well, kind of the biggest thing are the kind of industry conferences. I'm not necessarily of the mind where you need to go have kind of like a trade show booth set up and everything. We kind of do like a guerrilla warfare style, to where I'll go get a bar tab across the street for a fraction of the price of a trade show booth, and get the email list, email every single person. Hey, how's it going? Or not like that, but like, hey, here's who we are. Here's what we do. If you want a free drink, come stop by Joe's bar across the street. I'll be here all afternoon.
Yeah.
So we've won a lot of business that way, but primarily in the commercial space, it's all going back to it. It's all relationship driven. You have to identify the people that are responsible for awarding the bids in the space, and you have to do everything you can to get them in your back pocket. And then once they're in your back pocket, you have to do everything you can to not screw it up, because they're responsible for, multiple assets and their geography and whatever asset class that they're in. And they're going to put you on all the projects that come up that they have.
Yeah. So have you built a CRM for that?
Yeah, we have HubSpot for that, but it's primarily, we haven't done too much outside of multifamily reach out yet for that.
Got it.
But as soon as we get this guy that's going to be our dedicated multifamily sales rep, if you will, that's going to take over our existing workbench or existing client bench, and then get us into whoever he knows or she knows in the space. I'm going to start doing some more targeting outside of multifamily myself.
Got it. Is Sam part of the SMB Law Group?
Yes, Sam
Okay.
is. So Sam is a partner at SMB Law Group, which is nice because in return, SMB Law Group is now the SM Bootcamp's preferred legal deal team member.
Got it.
So yeah, they've
Makes sense.
done really well with that.
Makes sense. Yeah, they did a good job with. They did the same strategy that you were talking about, where putting a bar tab at a pizza
Yeah.
place, in
The Main
at
Street
that
one?
event, the Main Street event.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was good. It was fun. I was there. It
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah, no, it's a good playbook, rather than sitting there. Because the other thing too, at all these industry conferences, like 50 to 70, at least I can just speak to the multifamily ones, like NAA, National Apartment Association. That's like the big property management conference. And like 50 to 75% of the attendees there are like the property managers who, had hit their NOI growth goals or had the best whatever KPI you can think of in their group. And so they got a free ticket to go to NAA, which basically to them is an open bar tab and the ability to go collect all the free shit from the trade show booths.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there. We did the one trade show booth, and I'm sitting there, and it's a community manager coming out to me, just like with a cocktail in her hand. Oh, you guys do lights, huh? Like, yeah, we might need some lighting work, or maybe one actually had a bid for us. And then that's another thing we try to avoid too, going back to finding the people who are responsible for the budget. Like a property manager could sit here and tell you all day, oh yeah, your project's awarded. We love your group. This project's definitely in our budget. You're going to get the bid. And then lo and behold, we end up talking to the construction manager, and he's like, what are you guys talking about? This isn't in the budget for like another 2 years or some shit like that. So we've learned, hey, you have to be, we're still a small company. We're quote unquote bootstrapped. We got to go guerrilla warfare style. So it's all about identifying and getting those people that are responsible for the CapEx budgets at any sort of asset.
And there are different roles in different companies.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of rhymes. Like they might have different job titles. So like a project manager might be a construction director in a different company, but the typical structure for most of these apartment management groups is like on-site, just there's like the community manager and then a maintenance supervisor. And then above them, there's a regional property manager or a regional like maintenance director.
Yeah.
And then above that, above on the maintenance side, there's like a project manager who's like doing all the bid letting for all of the kind of CapEx projects they have going on his or hers 20 assets that they oversee.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I have a feeling that as you embark into the next sales and marketing campaign, I don't think you're gonna want to quit. It's gonna become fun.
Yeah,
because you already gone through the tough first 4 years.
Yeah, I've gotten punched in the face, so now it's like, all right, I've gone through the shitty part, so now let me kind of reap the benefits of it. But in the ideal world, like I said, I'm hoping to kind of transition out of this at a full day-to-day role instead of 60 hours a week. It's more of like a couple hours a month. So I'll always probably be involved with it unless we do end up scaling or selling it. But I want to go do a proper search, right down the middle of the fairway, get an SBA loan, improve operations, and then hopefully buy some other kind of adjacent competitors or in different markets. So
yeah, nice. With better cap table.
Yes, and a better cap table too, where I am not the only mouth that needs to get fed.
Exactly. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it, Chandler. Thank you very much for taking the time today. It was very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good one.